Rachel, who she doesn't know. Her comments and words of affirmation mean so much to me. So, welcome, my dear friend. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks, January. Thank you for having me here. It's just a great pleasure and excitement.
Oh, I love it. And I even love your accent. Are you originally from Australia or New Zealand, or where's the accent from?
New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay, great. I didn't know because I know you were traveling. So, well, thank you for being here. Uh, Rachel is one of our Women's School Wholeness Coach, and she's been with us for how long?
Ooh, maybe since 2021 or 2022. I'm actually not sure, January.
Wow. Well, great. Well, I would just like to have the audience get to know who you are in a little bit for just briefly. And so I'd like to start with just asking you, how would you describe you in 3 words?
Awesome. Well, I've been preparing because I've been listening in. So it's an interesting question to get to be asked. So thank you. Definitely adventurous.
Hmm.
I've traveled a lot around the world. I've been chasing my dreams. I've been a professional yachtswoman and flying planes and working in all the parts of the world. So definitely adventurous. So on reflection, I think if you're adventurous, you're also a dreamer. And I think you're a possibilitarian. Um, People have described me as calm, and I think mostly I am, but not always. It's not always possible. And then finally, I would say, and we were just talking about this, that my friends in the women's school would describe me as a woman who has an accent, but I can't hear it. So
You
go
can't
figure.
hear. That's so funny. Well, wow. Wait, did you just say yacht? Did you say yacht? What was it?
Yeah, yeah. At one point, I was a professional yachtswoman in my through my 20s and early 30s.
Wait,
Yeah,
yacht swimmer. What do you mean a yacht swimmer?
yachtswoman.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
Susie accent.
was.
So you've traveled around the world on a yacht sailing, and is that what you? Wow,
Yeah, and that was my job. Yeah.
wow, that was your job. Wow, that's I love it. I love adventure and I love dreams. Well, thank
Mm.
you for sharing that. I didn't know that about you, and I do think that you are calm and tender. But everybody, I feel like I'm calm and tender, but then I have moments. Like who doesn't? So
Mm.
I think that's a fair explanation. Well, maybe you can give us a little bit of a journey of how you met the women's school and what was it like before you came into the women's school, what you've learned here, and who Rachel is now.
Mm. I met the women's school, I guess it was sometime back in 2020, and, I heard you in a Catholic conference online is when I first heard you speak, and I don't know what you said. To this day, I can't remember what you said, January, but in that moment, I knew I had to hear more, and
Mm.
that's when, I met with some of your coaches and then began the journey. In fact, just the other day, I found a small screenshot of the email that I'd sent, because it was such an important decision to make.
Mm.
Said, "Hi team, I think I'm ready now to begin the adventure with the women's school." And I didn't know where that adventure was going to go, but thinking about the woman that I was before the masterclass, one of the ways I begin to describe it is by saying there's a line down my life, like before the masterclass and after the masterclass. It's really distinct. And if you looked at my life before the masterclass, you would have seen it as successful in terms of how the world sees things on the surface. Like I described earlier, I was chasing my dreams. I was a professional yachtswoman and sailing around the world and getting paid to do that, traveling to so many countries. And then I got my degree. I got to work in beautiful schools here and overseas. So on the surface, my life
Mm.
looked successful. It looked
Mm.
great. And it was. I'm very blessed. Um, but I would say that there was an undercurrent that
Mm.
maybe you couldn't see. Maybe it erupted from time to time. And it was an undercurrent of a woman with a poor self image.
Mm.
And that woman was looking to the world for her value, which is a really dangerous thing to do. And she was a woman who didn't have command of her mental thoughts. She hadn't had that training, of a mental command. Therefore, I didn't have emotional command. So there was a lot of drama, probably internally and externally.
Mm.
Uh, used to think that women were a lot of drama, and I preferred to hang out with men. Most of my friends were male, but looking back now, it's like, oh, that was me. I was the drama, you know. But I never had the language. I can talk about it now, but I didn't have the language then to describe that undercurrent.
Mm.
So joined the masterclass, and now I have a completely different language that I can navigate life with. So I have a language of hope. I have a greater vocabulary to describe the seasons and the good times and the difficult times and those bumps in the road so that I can navigate them better. I'm developing a toolbox, and it's a
Mm.
toolbox of that hopeful language. It's a toolbox of skills, of strategies, of frameworks and formulas and scripts, so that as those challenges come through, I can look in my toolbox and pull out what I need. And I'm not one and done. Definitely a work in progress. Like you say, it's that lifelong work.
Wow. Well, you said many things, my friend. Well, thank you. I think it was a Holy Spirit moment. That's what I would say. That's probably what you heard. Like, I think the invitation here, I think, is the invitation to rise. I think there is a culture where there's just so many things happening in the world. And I think there is an army brewing of saying, we want truth, we want beauty, and we want something that is more than the shallow things that we have been given. And I think the language is the glue because it brings the awareness because so many women are suffering without the words to actually articulate what burden they're carrying. And most women are carrying it all their life. And some women are still carrying it, unaware of the burden that they're carrying. And, I commend you for your humility because I think that's what, while you're speaking, that's what I hear, Rachel, is the humility that you've succeeded so many things in the outside world, but the enough humility to actually face yourself, who you are and who you're not, and say, wait, there is actually a gaping hole. Because that takes a lot of humility because women, the external success becomes the blinders in which we can look interiorly into asking ourselves some hard questions. Am I truly fulfilled? Is there something more in my life besides the surface? Often that's actually becomes a roadblock, is the external success. So I think your humility is probably what brought you to a point of interior freedom and continually too. So I just honor that. it's and it's so remarkable because when your humility shines, it also creates a ripple effect in other women to say, I am actually carrying that too. And that your courage to own up to that gives them the courage to own up to the things that they're struggling with. So just so you know, it's not a small thing that you have just um, shared, Rachel. So thank you for that. And I guess I want to ask you just a question. Um, what do you see in the culture today in women? Why do you think women are suffering, and including yourself? But as you continue to see outside of yourself that you wanted to hang out with boys because you thought women were a drama. I mean, that's just one of the thousands of narratives. But how would you describe the state of women right now as you see it?
Overwhelmed and stretched. And it's like you mentioned earlier, our careers mean so much to us that they keep us really busy. And in a way, if sometimes I use this term, worshiping at the altar. Like I say
Mm.
now, I don't worship at the altar of work, but the world encourages us to. And work keeps us busy and it kind of keeps us bound because if we're focusing on work and then, running to our families or, our community and doing all those other parts of our lives, where do we have time to reflect? So
Mhm.
it's not a culture that encourages deep reflection,
Yeah.
and also, it's not a culture that encourages us. Well, certainly here in New Zealand, coaching is kind of a new thing.
Mm.
It's not as big as in America. And so I think we're used to investing in our studies, investing in a degree, investing in a home, a car, or travel. But investing in ourselves and in personal growth and personal development is not something that's so common. And so when we don't go to that place and get the training and the tools and the language, then we just know what we know. It's like when I was that woman before, I didn't know what I didn't know. So maybe that's part of the place that some of us find ourselves in. We don't know what we don't know, and we have to have compassion for that.
Yeah, and I think you're set spot on. We don't know what we don't know, in a way that women don't know what they're missing. They just think this is the way life is. It's like carrying a chronic pain in your back, and you don't know that you could be healed or get, medication or whatever. You just think this is a way of life, and sometimes the hardest thing to convince women is to actually sell them and investing in their own interior freedom. And especially as work with our coaches, and I also think that coaching requires humility because it's a form of accountability. And so, why would we want to pay to be humble? If you think about it,
Yeah.
that I mean, it sounds so silly, but it is kind of true. It requires some form of ownership of I haven't arrived. There's work to do, and I need someone to help me. I mean, that what we define the modern strong women is I don't need anyone. Individualism has become actually the altar in which we worship. So that I think America is learning, it's sort of catching on, and I think the rest of the world is seeing that. It's not actually optional, it's vital for the lifeline of women. And I my children were in Montessori school, and there's many things that stuck to me, but one thing that one of the teachers said is that she said we spend so much rehabilitation work. We have rehab for the leg, rehab for our health, and all the things that we do post, but we never spend and invest on the preparation work. And she was specifically talking about the child, but we do, I mean, billions of dollars in therapy, in post work, in healing, but never just the preparation of the human person. And I thought, well, it's going to be cheaper to prepare you to invest in you than having to fix a broken human. I mean, if you think about it, And so, if you're a woman out there and you're listening and you're seeing a broken cycle, the cheapest thing you can do from a very financial perspective is actually cut their generational overwhelm and crisis and invest in yourself so your children don't have to invest in millions of dollars of generational therapy because that's what's happening. I mean, it is. And so, I think obviously the dream that we have here, Rachel, as you know, is that we have to give women access to the class that I truly believe every woman needs, which is the foundation of what it means to be human, what it means to be a woman. And so maybe before we switch, because then we can switch and you ask a question. I don't know if you're in the 3.0, because you've been kind of in 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. Just take me a little bit about your thoughts about the 3.0, because it's massively different. I started this class with 1.0 and then 2.0, and then now it's really, I feel like the 25 years of integrated work in this 3.0 masterclass. What's been your experience so far?
I love it. I just love it. And all that experience just shines through January. And for the women who haven't looked at it or are thinking about it, visually, it's just gorgeous. But content wise, it's so rich. And I think what's something that's really special about it is how it builds. So as you lean into the training, you get sort of layers of training. So
Yeah.
it's not just, we don't go straight to our arena training. We build the mindset skills and the scripting skills and the dreaming skills. And then we start to move into the arena. So I love the way it's layered like that. And it's just so rich. It's
Yeah.
really rich. And yeah, I've journeyed through them all. It is my favorite one so far.
Well,
And
I'm so grateful. Well, I also think that I haven't seen an integrated class that actually brings all the pieces of the woman together. And that's the vision for the New Woman Masterclass, which the vision is that how do we become that new woman for such a time as this, where we die to our old self and give rise to a new self on a daily basis for the sake of our generation, but actually for the sake of our culture. And that's how we would build a culture, is that we build the new woman. And that's, to me, my vision was for this masterclass is what is the one class that every woman needs as a foundation to who she was created to be so that she can then build upon. And that really is my hope. And it's taking me 100 hours per class. It's quite amazing because, and I have become so impatient with myself because I'm used to whipping content out because my goal is to be with my children and I can whip things out fast. And I'll tell you, it's been really good for my patients, but I don't want to shortchange it, because it's taking big concepts and integrate it into very, frameworks and applicable pieces so that anyone can take it every generation. So if you're listening out there and you're not part of the women's school, the New Woman Masterclass, I invite you to join you. I truly believe this is a class that every woman needs. Okay, so this is a time where we switch it, Miss Rachel, and you get to ask me anything goes.
Well, thanks, January. Well, I'm actually really coming to our conversation today with the heart of a teacher. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 17 years. And really, it's my desire that our conversation serves the hearts of other teachers out there. So let me turn to my question page for you. And first of all, I want to break open the concept of narrative. So we talk a lot in the women's school about the narratives that swirl around mothers and motherhood and marriage, like motherhood is hard, I'm a hot mess mama, and so on, and the impact that those narratives have on women. Well, in education, it's not much different. We
Mm,
have narratives that swirl around teachers. So I'm going to share a few with you now,
okay.
and I'm going to ask you to consider and share with us how these narratives, if we choose to accept them, impact our lives. So here we go. I'm just going to give you a few. This one's a good one. A good teacher is a tired teacher. Or you might hear it like, a tired teacher is a good teacher. Teaching is hard. No teacher like tired teacher. Working weekends and late nights is just part and parcel of the job. And then this is my final one, and it's a doozy. A good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. So tell me what you think of those. Break open
Oh,
the
I've got
impact.
a lot. Okay, so first thing that I want to think about is that if we actually really think about these narratives, maybe we wouldn't actually believe it. So think about what we're thinking. That's number one. So let's take it apart. Okay. A good teacher is a tired teacher. When a woman is tired, is she capable of actually giving a full version of herself? Let's take this on to a practical. I show up, I didn't sleep because I stayed out the night before because I had no routine. I was stuck in social media because I actually am not fulfilled about my life. So I show up at work, I'm exhausted. The human being only has a finite amount of energy on a daily basis. And so I show up. How can I, if I'm mentally tired, physically tired, emotionally tired, spiritually tired, think of my children's needs? So is it really true that a tired teacher is a good teacher? Yes or
Thank
no?
you. Yeah, thank you for blowing that myth out of the water,
Yeah.
January.
Well, let's but take it apart because I don't want to just stop there.
Mm.
A fulfilled teacher. Now you can be physically tired and no, I need to rest. I need to recalibrate. I need to mentally. But if a teacher is full of energy, full of life, consistently, like a tired mother is a good mother, really? A tired mother is incapable of studying her child, nor is a tired teacher. A tired teacher is going to give you bare minimum. Bare, she can barely breathe for herself. How can she give oxygen to everyone else? So the opposite is also true. A teacher who's full of life and energy can give more life to people. You can't give life you don't have. So no, let's blow that out of the water and replace it with a script that a teacher full of life can give more life.
Oh, I love that. A teacher full of life can give more life. Flipping the script.
Teaching is hard. Anything where you lack the skill is hard and overwhelming. If you are promoted from vice president to president, if you are, a stay-at-home mom and all of a sudden you become a teacher, if you lack the skills, it's going to be hard. Now let's break that apart. There are foundational skills that are necessary that goes across every other profession: managing your mind, managing emotions, saying no to yourself, building a rhythm of life, eating healthy, managing your energy. All these are actually the foundational skills necessary for every profession. So why is teaching hard? Well, maybe we don't have a routine. Maybe we don't know how to manage our mind when when our students are rambunctious. We become a victim to their emotion as opposed to having emotional command. Then we influence our emotion. So what if we don't know how to say no? What if we don't know how to manage our energy because we don't know how to eat well or think well of our children, of our students? And so now we're steep into frustration. So it's very hard, whether you're a teacher, a mother, a doctor, a president, a military, when you have no foundational skills, but on top of that, you actually need teacher skills. So let's just say I'm going to the Olympics because let's just say, and I'm trying to do this professional dance, but I have no tumbling skills. And the expectation is I'm supposed to do this 2-minute routine, right? You have no foundation of building a rhythm of life and order. So you're tired every day, you show up at work, and now you've got tons of paper to grade. And now your children are rambunctious. So now you don't, how do you build on the skills necessary for a teacher to flourish when you don't have a foundation to even begin? So is teaching hard, or is lack of foundational skill set or skills to manage our life makes teaching hard? I
Love
would
that.
say that anything is hard when you lack training. But I would also
Yeah.
say that teaching, just like I say, motherhood is the easiest thing I get to do. And people always like, what? I'm like, yes, I have 8 children. It is. But I've been diligent for the past 25 years, training myself with skill after skill. So it's not challenging. When my children are challenging, I have a toolbox full of it. So bring your toolbox. And the first thing you need to do is to rewire your mindset. You need, mind management skills. Because the fact that you're looking at this teacher is hard, we have this part of our brain called reticular activating system. What you focus and expand. So if you think this being a teacher is hard, you're going to see all the evidence of why teaching is hard.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what you're doing, January, is you're opening the door or sort of blowing things open because we have and you're showing people that it's not just the pedagogy, the way that you teach or your classroom strategies for that space that you're in as a teacher. It's everything about you. It's that human formation training that you were talking about earlier. It's about your training. So it's not just the training that you receive for the classroom, it's everything about you as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just want to also add, I think as teachers, the biggest influence we have is who we are. Because people that are going to remember the math or, some of the things that we teach, but our students remember how we make them feel. I mean, just think
Yes.
about that. And how we make them feel either opens the door to what we're teaching them or shuts it. So if a student doesn't feel like you're inspiring, that you look tired, you don't really want to be here. How do you make them feel to love learning, to love the love of learning? So it's crucial that we understand that to teach, you must first be. That is the greatest teacher, is who we are. The second thing we do is overflow is what we do. And that's a remarkable shift, I think, because teachers right now are thinking, what do I need to do, as opposed to who do I need to become, so that what I do then becomes a doorway so that I can fully teach. Because to educate is to draw out. That's what to educate. So how can you draw out, life and the potential of your students when you're just on survival mode?
Mhm.
Injustice to
Absolutely.
you students.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, January. That's so rich. And I think, I mean, I was going to ask about beginning teachers, but I'm just mindful of the time. But I think some of those, I have such a heart for beginning teachers, but some of what you're saying, everything of what you're saying relates to their struggle because just pivoting the conversation a little bit towards them, when you're a beginning teacher, the learning curve is so steep. But
Mhm.
if they were to lean into that training and have that human formation, it would make that transition and that journey just somewhat easier. So I'm going to put my questions for beginning teachers aside a little bit just for now. And I want to just pivot our conversation to think about and consider teachers in the different seasons of their lives. And what do I mean? I want to think about those teachers who are coming into the classroom. Maybe they're a new bride.
Mhm.
Maybe they're an expecting mother, or they're just come back from maternity leave and they're postpartum. How does that woman show up professionally, carry out her duties, and yet not just live through these seasons, but also thrive in these seasons while she's turning up to work as well?
That's a
What's
great
your
question.
take?
That's a great question, and I'm willing to go along if you have the time to, because I just think it's so important, and I'm so committed to just breaking some of these narratives. So I think, just like you were saying earlier, teacher, the learning curve of teaching is very challenging, right? Because of all the learning curve of first year teacher. It's the same thing with motherhood. But where does that go back to? It goes back to, we have no foundational skills. So anything we do is hard. Postpartum is hard. a new career is hard, a new mom is hard. Now imagine you have no foundational skills. Now you have compounded your call. You're a teacher. Now you have to go, you're a mom or you're a bride. Now you're a sinking ship. And here's where it boils down to. Not only do we not have infrastructure of giving access to women's foundational training, mindset, and skill set, but we have no continuous training. We have no narrative that a woman ought to be a student of her life for the rest of her life. And so what we're basically telling women is figure it out on your own, and hopefully you will end up not in therapy. I mean, the injustice, if you think about it, comes from this idea that we stop growing the moment we get out of school. Not that presupposes that we're even learning some of the most basic skills in school, because I don't think we are. So I think the self-image is that we are masterful in our transitions. That's a very important skill. Life is all about transition. It's, you go in your house, you go in your house, you're a child attached to you and detached to you, you're dating and then maybe married and then empty nester. So we have to be masterful at the foundational skills that allow us to move into different seasons of our life with ease and grace. That requires a lot of compounding training. So if you're a woman out there and you realize, oh, I've been robbed, yes, you have. You have. So is the rest of the world. So is the rest of the world. So when you're a new mom and you're a teacher, you have to have mercy on yourself and ask yourself, who trained you to be a mother, to be a teacher, and to do both well? Now I'm going to cast a vision for you. You can learn anything, just as a stroke victim can learn how to walk again. Just as somebody who, just as somebody can learn a new language. And so it's not only possible, but it's necessary for you to say, wait a minute, I actually need to invest in my own training so that I can then manage the different transitions of my life as a new mom, a new teacher. Because if you don't, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to, the burden of the different seasons of life is going to compound over time. And this is why we have a lot of midlife crisis or depression and anxiety drugs, because we're sinking, not to a fault of our own, because we're unaware of it. So for anybody that's out there listening, there's so much hope. You have to invest in you. And I think that this is, to me, when a woman is tired and exhausted and incapable of transitioning to the most beautiful season of her life, the rest of the world suffers right around her. Her students suffer because she's tired, but then her child suffers. So now you've got her child that suffers. Her child suffers. Why? Because the woman is suffering.
And January, I don't think a lot of people have heard this before. And it's a challenge. This is a hard word actually for people to hear. But it's also the invitation, isn't it?
Which one is hard? Which part you think is hard? Or
Well, I just think there's just calling out, you're suffering, and this is why you're suffering, and because you're suffering, other people are suffering. And I think in our culture, we don't want to hear that, and we don't want to hear that we're not doing well. So that's sort of what I mean. It is maybe hard to hear for the first time, but like you say, it's the challenge, but it's the invitation. And when you do step into that invitation and you do take on the training, then it becomes the pathway for hope. And I know that if I hadn't taken on the training, and I didn't get the training till I was 49. I mean, don't wait that long, really don't wait that long. And if I hadn't taken on the training, I would be that same woman now, spinning my wheels, looking successful, but spinning my wheels. And I think the danger for teachers, and it happened to me, and I see it all over social media, is the burnout and the depletion because of lack of training. And part of that training is building yourself up into a self-image of, I'm a woman who can set boundaries. I'm a woman who will take care of all the other parts of my life. My job is important and I will turn up with integrity, but it's not my be all and end all, because that's when the suffering and the depletion and the overwhelm happens. Yeah.
and it's unsustainable, Rachel, because the last narrative that you told me, a good teacher is, I couldn't write it out fast enough, the fourth one, but the burnout is because it's an unsustainable. And so what I see even in my own observation, teachers start out with such inspiration for a life of contribution only to wake up after years of just being a teacher and say, I can't do this anymore. I've lost myself. I've lost who I am. It's so different than motherhood. And if we were to step back into our school system right now and the children, is there a possibility that the compounding impact of a burnt out teacher is radically impacting our children, where there's a lot of frustration, chaos, anger, rage, and our next generation is actually living lives of quiet desperation that's resulting into anger? Is it possible that we can own that responsibility as teachers, mothers, and leaders of our culture? Women are nurturers of humanity and say, this stops with me. I will lay down my life so that I can then have more life in my life to give more life to my students. Because what we are seeing right now are unfulfilled youth wreaking havoc in society.
Mm. And I
Scary.
think when a teacher takes that on board, that idea that I more life in my life, she not just impacts her students, but then also her own family and her marriage and her friendships and her community. And that really brings us to a nice question to kind of wrap everything up with January. And so here's my last question. Let's dare to write a new narrative for teachers and for their lives and for all the parts of their lives. Let's dare to write a narrative that designs a new way for them to live, that honors their dignity as a whole person, that functions not just inside the classroom, but in all parts of their lives, in her friendships, in the staff room, in her community. So, January, to wrap things up, what do you think this new narrative could be for teachers?
Great. So let's cast a new vision of a new woman, which is a new kind of teacher for now and the future generation. So let's design her. Because, like most things in the world, first it was designed in our imagination until it became into fruition. And so we must design this new vision of a teacher that will be the hope of our future generation. And it begins with you. So let's just look at who she is. Her self image is that she is full of life. She's resilient. She has unshakable peace. Her students don't influence her negatively. She inspires her students because she knows her boundaries. She knows how to sell what is good. She's full of life. She comes into work every day and she is well rested. She ate well. She has a rhythm of life that already gave her a morning time to honor her prayer, her meditation. She's not shoving herself into the morning. She's entered into the morning and she's ready to serve because she's actually filled her cup. She's exercising on a consistent basis. She manages what she eats because what she eats impacts actually how she feels, and how she feels impacts how she teaches. It's a direct impact. So she loves her body, and it doesn't matter what age. Her students look at her and say, she looks good. I love seeing her. She's always joyful. She exercises. I mean, Miss McGinty, I just love being around her. She's just full of life and she's funny. But you know what? You don't want to mess with her either because she knows her line. She's the kind of teacher where you walk in and you just want to be better. But you know what? I just feel so loved by her. Like I just feel so loved by her. And I want to be better because of Miss McGinty, right? But she knows when she goes to school, she's giving 100% because she's already prepared her home. She knows she's already taking care of the meals, she's taking care of the cleanup, or she's asked help. She knows how to ask for help and when to ask for help. And so she goes to school, but because she's so disciplined with her time, she knows in this hour, I'm going to finish this grading. She's ready. She's not rattled. She's peaceful. The kids are rattling. She knows how to command it because her emotional command is strong. And then she's able to go home and she's at peace. She's able to turn it off because right now maybe she's home with her children and she's there and she has quality friendships where she knows she's heard, seen, and valued, challenging her to dream, challenging her to grow. She has friendships that actually hold her accountable to studying and to dreaming. And then her intimacy, because she's so inspiring and she's full of life and she studies daily, her spouse is like, I love being with you. I love that you are the teacher that everyone admires. And then she goes into her contribution, which is her extension of her home life into her work life. And everybody loves to be around her because of the life she gives. And she's legendary in what she does. She's a great math teacher, but you know what? She's just really something special about her. There's just something that makes me feel like I want to be better when I'm around her. And her environment is peaceful. You go to her classroom and everything is orderly. And she sets a standard that's high, but everybody rises. And you know what they say? She's strict, but it's not a bad kind of strict. It's a good kind of strict. It's a strict that makes you want to be better. That's what the students say about her. And she's not in lack of finance. She's at peace. She has a capacity for generosity of time and energy. And she has more than enough because her heart is grateful. And she thinks deeply about her students and what they can do to contribute because her heart and her mind is at peace. She knows her purpose and she's creating generational contribution because her students admire who she is and she's memorable. She's full of life. She gives students hope. She casts a vision for who their students are supposed to be. And they can rely on her because she's a pillar. She's just, she's disciplined, and she makes everybody laugh.
Wow. Wow. I think there's going to be teachers here who are just really genuinely weeping for the desire to be that woman. Really. That was beautiful, January. And yet, and it's possible.
And
It's
that's
really
what I want to speak, because I think you're saying, January, this is impossible. I'm saying, first of all, nothing is impossible with God if you have a woman of faith. But number two, it's only impossible because you lack the skills. And I know this is possible because of thousands of women who've I've seen transformed. And all you need to do is to commit in saying, I want it. I want it. I desire that level of freedom. I want that. And you know what? Your heart is aching for it. And you know why? Because you were made for it. You're made for peace, for joy, for fulfillment, for abundance. You just have never been trained for it. So fight for the life, that the only life you have. Give yourself the justice that is due to you so you can honor your value. And by honoring your value, you raise the value of everyone else because you cannot give what you do not have. And I think it's time for teachers to honor their value and take a stand for what is true, good, and beautiful and cast a vision for a new kind of woman that's going to lead, that's going to teach, and that's going to mother the next generation.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, January. Thank you for inspiring all the teachers out there. That's a really good word today, and it's so much appreciated and so much needed. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be able to speak to teachers. We're going to take this and blast it, I think, to a lot of the teachers associations, maybe this interview, if you share it, because I think that there is such a hunger um, of there something needs to change. And that's why I think we can both agree. And the only thing we can control is who we are. And I think that it begins with us taking that responsibility. So thank you for the hard conversations. I love your questions. I did not expect anything else less from the depth and the richness of your questions. And thank you for making me feel valued, Rachel. You do in ways that you probably don't realize. So thank you all for those listening. To those teachers that are listening, who are thinking about it, please speak to Rachel, contact her, contact the women's school, and let's be the change that we want in the world. So God bless you all. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.